we are live once again. Let me get my headphones on.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm not even going to do any music. I'll let you do that, Doctor.
Okay.
And fix it up. But anyway, we're now going to welcome into our studio, our humble studio, Jason Hornbeck, who is running for Corporation Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Yes, welcome. So welcome to. We saw each other. When was it? A week ago.
I want to say it was a week ago.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track when you're traveling the state and you've been to so many different meetings.
I can imagine. But I remember saying and thinking that this is an office that most of us know probably the least about. And what's really important is that we don't know how important of an office this really is. Corporation Commissioner. If you pay for heating bills, fuel, things like that, there's many things in the state that you guys have to oversee. I'm prophesying, you guys, that the Corporation Commission has to oversee. And it is a very neglected office as far as people knowing what they do. And so, welcome.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak with you guys. And you guys do wonderful here on this podcast, and appreciate the opportunity to speak to your listeners. But yeah, the Corporation Commission, I want to say 60% of the industry in Oklahoma is regulated at the commission. It's a constitutional body, a setup of 3 commissioners that serve staggered 6-year terms. So every 2 years we do vote on a seat. Todd Hyatt's seat is up, and he's served his 12 years, so he won't be running for re-election.
Oh, is that right?
So it will be an open seat. But yeah, a lot of people aren't aware of what goes on there, but our daily lives are affected by the choices made.
Yeah, help us out here. Let's go to 6th grade civics class. The Corporation Commission is set up. My understanding is when the government gives a monopoly, a exclusive territory, let's say to electric company, what's to stop them from charging whatever they want? And it's the Corporation.
It's the Corporation Commission.
Yeah.
They are there to ensure that the rates stay reasonable. We do have one of the cheapest electricity rates in our area.
Wow.
The reason why
is that, are you speaking Broken Arrow or are you speaking Tulsa?
I'm talking about Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma. Okay.
Compared to Texas.
Especially if you're in the Grand River Dam Authority's exclusive, because they don't pay taxes.
Right. But what we see on our bills is not only the usage, but you have the securitization fee from the 21 winter storm that we're paying back. And I believe I added it all up, almost $2.5 billion the ratepayers are paying back. And
who allowed that?
We haven't got any answers from
the Corporation Commission.
Unfortunately, that's through the Attorney General, and the Attorney General at the time, I believe that was under O'Connor. It was right before he stepped out of that role and Drummond went in. But I've reached out to the AG, and I was told that, well, we don't contact the public. We don't talk to people about ongoing cases, and you'll just have to wait for a press release, which is funny because now the Attorney General is giving out his cell phone to people to give them a call. And I believe we need the answers. We've been asking for 4 years, why was this an issue? I understand that we did very well compared to Texas. We didn't run out of natural gas to the point where we didn't have electricity.
Without getting too deep in the woods, why is it the Attorney General had the final say, not the Corporation Commission?
Well, the Attorney General is the voice of the people. He's going to be the one, or she would be the one, to investigate any charges that were fraudulently exorbitant charges for the natural gas, which was what happened in the winter storm. The price of natural gas just skyrocketed.
Are you implying then that the Corporation Commission decided not to investigate wrongdoing by the Corporation Commission?
I'm saying that they took the amount that was told to them and they applied it as was told by the legislature to them to apply it through the securitization charges.
But here's what's interesting to me, and I don't know how everybody else is, but my gas bills, I haven't had an issue with those. It's the electric. PSO is the one that I can't believe. You know, it used to be my PSO bill was like $20 a month in the winter. When I'm using gas for heat and I'm not blowing my AC, you know. In the summer it was $200 a month maybe or so, but in the winter it was down like in the 20s because, you know, everything else I have a gas heated home, and yet my electric bill now is even in the winter it was like $70-$80 a month.
Oh, that's low. Mine was higher than that.
Yeah. So, well, but you may have electric heating.
No, I'm natural gas.
Oh, you natural. Yeah. So, whereas even in the winter when I'm using gas for everything, a gas furnace and all, I still, you know, it's not that high.
Right.
As it is in the summer with the electric. So I mean, that's why I'm just saying, I'm just kind of shocked that you feel that PSO or whichever electric company it may be, rates have not been that bad. So.
Well, when I'm speaking about the rates, I'm talking about the actual rate for electricity, and you can check that out at the government websites. And it does show that our rate in Oklahoma is about 30 cents less than Texas. And that's residential, commercial, and industrial across the board. And they're different scales, but generally you're looking about 30 cents cheaper than Texas. But I can't speak to you specifically on your bills, but you know, what you also have to look at is the securitization charge, the franchise fees, the additional taxes that
the tax
I want to call it a tax.
The tax
that you have on the itemized statement.
Okay, but when Grand River Dam Authority was set up, okay, they created Grand Lake, right? And Lake Hudson. And they had that as this afterthought. Hey, when we put this dam in, let's put in a hydroelectric power plant and try to recoup some of this expense to state, right? Well, Grand River Dam Authority has rates so low that the state is not making market rates on this. And here I live in the PSO territory. Others live in OG&E territory. And we're jealous of the folks over in Pryor and Shoto and all this that are paying way less.
And they're using a lot more electricity with Google.
Google specifically worldwide selected that industrial park because it had the lowest electricity prices in the world.
Right.
Wow.
And what the state could cut income taxes, cut all kinds of other things if they would just equalize things so everybody's paying the same.
And that's kind of the idea when I'm talking about the Corporation Commission, because you speak to a lot of people that say, oh, regulations, we don't need any regulations. And you try to explain that we understand there's make sense regulation you have to have. Now there's over regulation and we can address that and we need to, but the legislative body needs to discuss that and pass the bills that we need to deregulate some of the overregulated parts. But yeah, I mean, there's a multiple different ways that we can attack that, and having that discussion is number one, trying to figure out what works best for everybody in Oklahoma and the different areas, because we understand that each part of Oklahoma is going to have a different view.
Yeah, because the cost of putting in these projects were incurred by the whole state. Some of it's federal money, Army Corps of Engineers too, but to selectively benefit certain people in certain territories. Now, I've talked about this before and written out, and I tell you who's upset at what I'm having to say is the Cherokee tribe, because most is in Cherokee territory, a lot of Cherokee Indians, and they like their low rates. You leave us alone, mind your own business.
But that seems to be the case. No matter what issue you talk about, people, if it benefits them, they say we found a good balance. Let's cut it there. I get the good end of the deal. We don't need to worry about you guys.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what happens in politics. Once a group has their issues addressed, they don't look at the other groups that are affected in the same way. As
much as you and I get disgusted with Google and YouTube and all the things they're doing to undermine our values, we're treating them better than the folks in Tulsa because they get the cheap rates. You and I don't. Yeah.
And I'd love to go in depth on that. And if we had another show or two, I'm sure we can get into that.
Okay.
What I do want to talk about, though, is a lot of these issues go back to some of my campaign points. And I tell people I'm all about the how and not the what, because every candidate that runs for Corporation Commission is going to tell you they don't like the lack of communication, that people aren't involved. They want to be a watchdog for the ratepayer. That's the what. The ratepayers feel like they no longer have a say. So the how is you open up communication, and I step up by giving everybody my cell phone. I say, look, during my campaign, reach out to me. If you have any questions at any time, call me. Now, if I'm sleeping, I'll call you back the next morning. Obviously, I know where the ringer's at. I'm going to turn that off. But it's about the how. How do we open up communication? And that goes going to the local level, talking to the county commissioners that are making a lot of decisions on a lot of projects that are coming to the area. That's talking to the representatives that are talking to the people and understand the problems of their constituents, especially when you get to the bordering counties. A lot of their issues are going to stem around the trucking industry and the permits. And so it really shows you that because the scope of the Corporation Commission is wide, that each county is going to have a different viewpoint and a different hot topic that's important to them. The other thing is transparency, and you really get a lack of transparency in some of the dealings with Corporation Commission because they don't want to get into specifics about specific companies. However, the whole point of the Corporation Commission is to be transparent and be open and honest with the people and be there. So when people call, they're getting in touch with who they need to talk to right away and having access to all the information. And if you're doing the job correctly, whether they like what you have to say or don't like what you have to say, you can stand behind it.
So what is your educational background? What was your major?
Well, I'm a pipeline welder by trade. We don't really
okay, so
have to have an education, but I did go to school. I have a business degree, and I'm also a certified welding inspector. It's an online school out of Ohio.
Okay.
But I'm also certified
we're not
welding
one of those,
inspector.
we're not education snobs in this this studio.
And then I've also gotten my specialist in safety and health, both in construction and general industry.
And so what is your current occupation? What do you?
I'm a pipeline welder.
A pipeline welder.
So I go project to project. It's going to be months at a time working on a project, working myself out of a job, and then going home and waiting for the next one. A lot of these are going to be the bigger new construction, but I've had to diversify my skill set to include working in power generation plants, working in steel mills, working in the places that we connect to on the pipeline, so that between times I'm able to stay busy. And anybody that's in the oil and gas industry understands the need.
So how did you get to the point where I think I want to be corporation commissioner?
Well, that's a very interesting story. At the young age of 20, getting involved in the pipeline, I realized quickly that these anti-energy groups were turning pipeline into a dirty word and attacking the permitting process at the local level. And for once, I understood that we had to fight for our jobs. So going to permitting meetings with these utility corporations and utility committees throughout the United States to say, look, these are good paying jobs. That's private industry coming in with private money that's going to bring taxes, jobs, and money being spent in these communities that desperately need it.
Okay. And you're not going to do this, but I will. Warren Buffett's one of the biggest fighters of it. Why? Because he owns Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, or largely. And
I'd love to get into the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which was out in the East Coast, that would have transported natural gas to the coast, which LNG is a big thing. And at that time,
Keystone XL,
keeping the natural gas on the railroads would benefit Warren Buffett. Keystone XL, I mean, that's a good example.
He's had oil spills hauling that Canadian oil down here on his railroads.
Well, you look at just the data. Pipelines are the safest, most efficient way of transporting.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
100%. And that's the frustrating part when you go into these communities and you hear these open meetings where you have so many voices from the small minority that want to shut down American energy so that we no longer can protect ourselves or have access to that cheap, reliable resource that we desperately need. And people we're starting to listen to them now. I've sensed a kind of a pushback in the general sense that people are, as we see an exponential rise in energy demands, we're starting to realize we need to tap into our American energy and be able to transport it. So it does seem like the pushback isn't as heavy, but Keystone XL, I fought for that for 20 years almost. And it came down to the president signing an order, shutting that down, putting pipeliners on the unemployment line, and then Pete Buttigieg looking into a camera saying, you guys just need to go back to school, learn how to code, and you can rejoin society as long as you're valuable over there. And now we're running record number of pipelines to power AI data centers that are taking over coding jobs. And it's very frustrating.
Well, it takes me to another thing, nuclear.
Yes.
What is your position on nuclear?
Well, I've worked in nuclear plants. I understand, the process, and I'm very much for it. It's a very expensive option. Here we have a lot of natural gas. We do have nuclear power surrounding us. So you go to Kansas, you go to Missouri, you go to Texas, Arkansas. There are nuclear generating plants all around.
It's not necessarily the cheapest to go nuclear, is it?
No, it's a very expensive, and especially initially, you're talking about a large investment and then a heavily regulated, which understandably you have safety concerns.
We don't want Chernobyl here.
Right.
Absolutely.
But apparently the reason I ask, because I've invested in the stocks are going crazy, right? Nuclear is really taking off.
Globally, yeah.
What? Just domestically. I'm talking domestically.
Right. Yeah.
And so they have these new, are you familiar with the modular reactors?
I am. And we're still moving towards that. It's a vision of the future. And I look forward to seeing.
So you would be open to us having a nuclear power plant?
I am open to an all of the above strategy, as long as everyone is fighting at the same level. See, in Oklahoma, what we've had is a surge of wind power, and it's not. Luckily, Oklahoma's gotten rid of the subsidies, but it's a tax subsidy generating business. It's not an energy generating business. And I believe our energy secretary has stated that these companies, if they check enough boxes, can get up to 70% of their initial capital investment back before they even start generating on wind. And that's why you've seen such a high rise. And this legislative session, we've seen a lot of good push for natural gas generation, which is great because we're all about natural gas.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against a company coming in and saying they want to compete, but they have to compete at a fair level.
Is there anything Corporation Commission can do to make it more feasible, maybe cut regulations for natural gas powered vehicles, CNG cars?
A lot of the power that the commission derives, it comes from the legislature.
Okay.
So the lawmakers that have to submit the bills and vote on the bills to give that to the commission or to give that to the local level, depending on where those need to be put in place. So it begins with the conversation between understanding the problem, getting the legislature involved to know how to draft the bill that will work, ensure that we have regulations that approve it, because we saw with the marijuana industry, which is outside of the corporation commission, but you see where you allow something to come in unregulated and it turns into a nightmare, and then we end up working backwards.
I don't think
instead of doing that,
forced it correctly, and they allowed it to get corrupt by not stepping in. But that's me.
And we've taken 5 years to kind of backstep and correct that, and it's good. But we need to have those conversations first to ensure we're doing it right. From the beginning.
Lost a lot of good people in the business because they couldn't compete against the corrupt people.
Right.
Good dealers versus bad dealers.
Yeah. Refineries. I understand we've really developed in the last 10, 15 years, the out there at Stroud, right? Or Drumright. Is it?
Cushing, Drumright.
Cushing. Thank you. That's what it was. And I've heard nationally, it said, the last 40 years, it's almost been impossible to create a new refinery. And so the current refinery has just been expanding. I guess that's a lot of like EPA and other federal regulations just create a mess by design, probably. is there anything the Corporation Commission can do to help us do more of our own refining here in Oklahoma?
Again, it's understanding the process and understanding where the state has the power to make those decisions. Obviously, you talk about the EPA, you're getting into the federal oversight, and I understand the process. I've not just studied the industry; I've physically built it, so I do understand a lot of the way that these go into place. But so without the power, without the legislature behind you, you're not moving forward. You need to have all the pieces together working for the same goal.
Yeah.
Now, moving from the actual nuts and bolts of the job of Corporation Commissioner, how's your campaign going? What can you tell our audience as far as your needs and where you are on that end?
Yeah, speak to that.
Well, right now I'm traveling the state, trying to get it to meet as many people as possible. I'm going to a lot of GOP meetings and a lot of commerce meetings, and just meeting who I can in different communities and understanding what's important to them. You can check out where I'm going, where I'm at, and I keep my Facebook updated. I've tried the other social medias. It takes too much time, and a lot of times it's the same people on all the different platforms. So focusing on one is really where I'm at. So go on Facebook, look up Justin Hornbeck for Corporation Commission 2026. You can go to my website at hornbeck.com, and that's HORNBACK. And just follow along. A like, a share is a great thing on social media, because it not only gets that word out to your neighbors and friends, but it lets people know, I've been wondering who does that, because a lot of us don't even know that the Corporation Commission has stickers on the side of the gas pumps, because they
that's part of
regulate
their
the gas
job.
pumps. Right.
Yeah.
So
when you see a bag over a handle there, meaning this is out of commission,
give me a call.
It's likely because the corporation says, you know what, you weren't getting a full gallon that you paid for.
That's a good possibility.
Yeah.
Really? I just thought they were out of gas.
No. Well, when they say it's not working, it really it's not working accurately enough for the Corporation Commission to allow us to keep using it.
That's generally it. They want to make sure that it is accurate.
And now at earthquakes, that was something 10 years ago. I'm looking here, Labor Day weekend of 2016, 5.8. And Pawnee, not far from Tulsa. And it shook us up pretty big.
What year?
In 2016.
Oh,
that wasn't the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, down in Shawnee, there was a 5.7. And I was furious. I wrote on it. In fact, my stuff went viral nationally because it was so big. And it was on a weekend, and Labor Day weekend at that. But I was furious. And I said, the Corporation Commission is not going to get by with just another email.
Right.
And by God, the next Thursday, I think it was, they had an open symposium at TU. And they spelled out and they took questions.
Right.
This was the problem, is they were like an ivory tower. And the legislature had banned, Jason Murphy was state rep up there in Guthrie. It had really been hit hard by him. And the legislature banned counties from putting moratoriums. We found out it wasn't fracking. It was the injecting salt water back underground, because that comes up with it. And ever since they put those moratoriums on, my God, you're not hearing about earthquakes anymore. It's very rare.
And there's two things I want to point out about that. A, people shouldn't have to go to the point of getting national attention before we're willing to have a conversation. And B, look what happens when we're able to come together, see a problem, find ways to address it. And at the Corporation Commission, I'm proud that they did pull back on the pressure of the injection.
Yeah.
And we are having positive results.
Yeah. But it took 5 years to get there.
Right.
5 years has sustained a lot of property damage all over the state.
And it shouldn't take that long to just have a conversation. If we are open and talking at the very beginning, we should be able to have almost immediate results.
Yeah.
It may not be the one that you think is best or I think is best, but when we all sit down and figure out what the problem is, we start addressing the issue right away instead of 5 years later.
They didn't ban fracking, as a lot of leftists wanted, right? And they didn't try to raise taxes on the oil. They just said, here's the deal. Don't be pumping so much. They took control over the pumping. Hardly had any earthquakes in the last 10 years.
And I'm also very proud, because a lot of times when you get in situations where there's a problem, fear takes over. And when people get fearful, they want to just stop. They don't want to address the issue. They don't want to move forward. They just want to stop. And unfortunately, that doesn't move us forward in Oklahoma. So the best thing to do is to look at the problem, understand the issues, understand how to address it, and move forward. And the natural gas industry has shown their ability to do this time and time again when it comes to the carbon emissions, hidden green energy checkpoints that they've imposed on us, and still being able to be energy dominant here in America. That's how innovation works, is not stopping, but continuing forward, but addressing the issues so that we can.
Yeah. Does your corporation commission have any involvement on pollution regulation, any of that? I think it's a different agency.
A lot of that's going to be derived, right, with DQ or
environmental quality.
Right. But ensuring that these businesses are addressing environmental issues is part of the corporation.
Now, saltwater disposal,
Absolutely.
That's a pollution issue, but it's corporation controls that.
Correct. So there's a little overlap, and it's very hard to get into the intricacies of how each field works.
Jason, so if people want to support your candidacy, how do they do that? And you can speak into the.
Well, if you'd like to donate, you can go to Hornbeck.com. We do have a donate button, but truly, I prioritize word of mouth and people helping out how they can over monetary value, because, you telling 10 friends about the Corporation Commission, about myself, or any other candidate that may throw their hat into the ring, gives people more information to make that correct vote and get out there and ensure that the right person is elected. And that goes so much farther than $5, $10, $25 does, because nowadays a mailer might cost you $1 a mailer. And you're talking about 1.3 registered Republicans in Oklahoma, 1.3 million. So at $1 a piece, I'm kind of in the same boat that Jake was talking about. You try to ensure that the money isn't hanging over your head. And so I've always gone at it with a very personal funded, and keeping that low does not allow for mailers. It's getting into.
I'm looking at your name here. Eddie and I both have German blood, right? It's Hornbeck, not Hornbeck.
That's correct.
Not the Beck as in Becker. Hornbeck.
Or Bach.
Yes.
A lot of people try to make it more complicated than it is. It's just.
But when you're going to hornbeck.com,
correct.
It's HORNBACK.com.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so it'll take you. My actual web domain is hornbeck2026.com, but it all goes to the same website.
Yeah. Now, what is your? Have any other people filed for the office?
I've heard that at least one House representative will be jumping in. I haven't looked. Last time I looked, there hadn't been any other committee set up with the Ethics Commission. But I believe that there is one, and the Constitution newspaper said best. There's a lot of people that are terming out in the House and Senate that they expect quite a few to throw their name in the ring for multiple offices.
The biggest way to clear the road, I think, talking to John Eccles, who's running for Attorney General, is he's trying to front load as much of his campaign support in the next filing. Because when they see your campaign war chest, maybe I'll just wait a year, for the next election or some other office. So if you really like, Mr. Hornbeck, donating this month might make bigger impact than donating next month, because June 30th is a deadline for filing finances.
And it might just sway. Though I encourage anybody to jump in. I think running a campaign is just like a job application.
Yeah,
the
sure.
more applicants you have, the better for the people.
But you're human. Encouragement helps.
Yes,
And
yes.
a donation is great encouragement.
And if you can't donate, please reach out to me. Can I give my cell phone?
Absolutely.
It's 918-219-3185. You can give me a call anytime. Text probably works the best because I'm driving a lot, getting to all these different meetings throughout the state.
And I'm sure you're going to be organizing, like in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, ground teams to help get you at events represented, because you can't be everywhere at once, but you'll need that, right?
Yeah. And it's still a lot of the planning stage at this point. It's very early in the process, but all the other state candidates jumped in and got started. So I wanted to be able to be at the meetings with them and give attention to this very important office.
Well, clearly you've given this a lot of thought. This is not an impulse thing. You've started here over year and a half now, almost 2 years you've been working on this, right?
And I ran last time. So I've been focused on this for over 3 years. It's been something that my job has kind of led to. I've been in the industry. I work in the industry. I've seen the regulations from the side of the people, and I understand the process. I want to be able to take that education and experience and serve the people.
So you've been on the ground, shipping oil, piping oil, doing all. What's the hardest welding there is to do as a welder?
I'm actually going to say pipeline is pretty easy in the sense that you're not surrounded by all the other stuff. It's wide open. Now the welding itself is verified. You have an inspection, you have non-destructive testing, 100%. But you get into some of these plants and energy generation places, and you are stuck in the corner welding with a mirror. You can't get your head there, so you are freehanding or looking through a gap.
So it's the tight spaces that make
tight spaces are definitely.
So, but you do almost all arc welding, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Acetylene or aluminum, and there's all kinds of welding.
We do a lot of TIG, especially in the nuclear, because of how clean it is. You don't have the flux and you don't have the cleanup. But downhill stick on pipeline is generally you're getting a lot of low hydrogen procedure, which is stick and also flux core or dual.
He's
shield.
real, Eddie. You can't fake this stuff.
It's another whole language.
I've done a lot of welding, and I know a poser when I see this guy ain't a poser. He's truly a welder.
Yeah, this is crazy. I say, wait a minute, let me get my glossary out here.
As a welding inspector, I get into that where I throw those terms out just thinking everyone's following along with me, and I apologize.
No, I'm gonna need a Berlitz book to translate it.
Yeah. Aluminum welding still freaks me out. I don't know how to do.
It's one I haven't done a lot of, but I have looked.
Yeah, the tanker trucks. I think a lot of that's aluminum.
Yeah, right.
But Jason, seriously, this has been great.
Justin.
I mean, Justin.
It's all right.
Did I call you Jason before?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I apologize.
You
should have just switched.
Starts with a J.
Justin. I'm sorry. I know where I got
Justin Hornbeck.
Justin Hornbeck. Yes, like the hornbacked owl. No, I'm just. Bad Eddie. No, seriously, I really appreciate it because I've learned a whole lot. And it's just good to know somebody, that's there and knows the business from the ground up. To me, a lot of times, one of the problems we have is you get these representatives that leave the House or the Senate that really, they have no background in the things that they're going to be overseeing. Mm-hmm. And from what we heard earlier today, they're beholden to a lot of lobbyists and so forth. And I would much rather see one of us, the common man, taking that knows it from the ground up and takes it from there. So I'm going to be praying for you, and I'm going to be definitely in your corner. So
we want you back. 12 months from now, we'll be in the thick of the primary. So
we'll have to jump in depth on some of these topics that we covered and
answer, the stuff that flies.
But no, you hit the nail on the head, and so did Jake before. There's so much money involved in it, and what it takes is just somebody to step up. We're not going to get campaign reform like we think it should be. So you just have to do what you believe and stand on your own morals and your own decisions.
Well, there's the producers and, the corporations that provide the energy and things like that. And the Corporation Commission is there to protect the consumers. But if all the campaign money is coming from the other side and they want us to pick who's going to protect us from them, see, this is why it takes intelligence and not just listening to a bunch of jingles on TV.
Well, not only do you fear the strings that are attached to every dollar that's donated to these campaigns through PAC money, but you see it at the Capitol a lot. If you don't go along with certain bills, our lawmakers will be told, hey, you need to vote this way or else you're not only not getting the money, but we're going to find somebody to run against you that will have the money.
We've seen
and
that.
So the money becomes such a big deal. And I feel like just staying out of it is the best way because there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Jim Inhofe said, no money, no message. No message, no victory. That's the way he put it.
and I have seen that in the past with a very limited campaign. It's hard to get the message out. So I appreciate this, and that's why social media has become such a wonderful asset.
All right. As you go to break.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
We'll go to break. Thank you.